Hey, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Kibby. This is the 7th episode, I think. I had no idea that this was going to catch on and go this far, but this is a blast. I have a treat for you today. I have the first counselor that I have interviewed so far, and this is going to be fun, I promise. Please, everybody, welcome Mrs. Cathy Davis to the studio. Hi, Miss Davis. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Mrs. Davis is on the twilight of her career, considering what she's going to do next. And we had the good fortune of teaching together at a large school in central Nebraska, and got some crossover stories that I can't wait for you guys to hear. So let's jump right in. Cathy, tell me something that you will never forget about your counseling or teaching days in an educational setting.
Well, I taught 20 years before I became a counselor, so I probably have way more teaching stories than I do counseling stories. But my first one, actually, my own children thought I needed to share. When it was my second year of teaching. I had my second child, my daughter, at the tail end of my first year that I was a teacher, and I taught at a small consolidated school. And back in that day, we couldn't just submit our sub requests over the computer. We had to actually call in and tell them we weren't going to be there. And I was told, my daughter had pink eye and you couldn't take her to daycare. And so I was told that they didn't have any subs and I had to come to school. Well, my husband was already at work and there was nowhere to take her. I said, is there a chance you can get a sub, at some point during the day? They said, yeah, if you can come in even just to, to start the day, then great. And I said, all right. Well, I came in and I brought her with me because I had no other choice. And so she was in class and I'm teaching English, and she slept for, part of the morning. But when she finally woke up, she was fussing, and the kids were offering to hold her and everything. And I'm telling them she's got pink eye. You guys need to wash your hands. Don't, just be really careful. And they're all passing her around and holding her and playing with her, talking to her. And I'm like, things were going okay. And I'm like, but seriously, guys, you've got to wash your hands. This is not good. And so then, I don't know, 2 class periods of that probably. And they finally got the sub and I was able to take her home. And boy, by the end of the week, it was, everybody had it. It was,
It's wildly contagious, right?
yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, there were lots of kids. They were dropping like flies, and I would. But we all learned an important lesson about needing substitute teachers at that.
and hand washing.
And yes, all the things.
That's hilarious. It's scary, but also hilarious.
It was not very. I don't know. I felt bad, but also, it was a fun thing to remember, and they could all, they all had fun. It was all right.
Any other roles that you've served in other than just a teacher or a counselor? Have you had any extracurricular stuff? Have you led anything?
Yeah, I was a yearbook and newspaper advisor for really the bulk of my career. And one of the first years, we still had film cameras and had to get film developed and those kinds of things.
Dark room.
And yeah, dark room. We did have a dark room, but for a lot of our film, we just dropped it at Walgreens and, got things developed. And we had a layout that we were doing on how kids decorated their bedrooms at home. So if they had a particular theme or, whatever. And so one of the girls had taken a camera home over the weekend because she was going to do the interview and take the pictures and stuff with one of the students. And that particular layout was due like Tuesday or Wednesday the following week. So I had to get the pictures in. So I had asked my husband to swing by and pick up some film that had been dropped off to develop at Walgreens before he went to work that afternoon. He comes walking in and I don't know, it's like 2:30 in the afternoon, and he's got these pictures in his hand. And he's kind of looking at me and he's looking at the pictures and he says, "These are going in the yearbook?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And he says, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Are you sure you picked up the right?" And he says, "Well, yeah, it was, it was the school." And I said, "Okay, well," and he just didn't say anything else. He handed them to me. And the first 2 or 3 are the bedroom or whatever. And I look at the next one and it's this long line of boys in women's underwear and lingerie. And um and
That's how the girl decorated her room.
yeah, that's what I wasn't sure what I was looking at. And and I kind of flipping through the pictures, and I'm starting to recognize this kid and that kid, and they're wearing teddies and thong underwear and cowboy hats and a variety of different things. And after about, I don't know, picture 5 or 6, I'm kind of shoving them off to the side because I've got these kids in my class.
What was the story? Why?
Well, there had been a party, obviously, and so we took the pictures that we were supposed to take for the assignment, but then we used the same camera to commemorate the little weekend get together that we had at the house. And she thought she was just going to go pick up, drop them off and then go pick them up, and then nobody would know that, just it wouldn't be anyone would be any the wiser. And she didn't anticipate that I would be trying to get that layout done so we could get the picture in,
And sending your husband to go pick him up.
and send my husband to go pick them up. And of course, Walgreens developed, so everyone at Walgreens saw, I'm assuming, so I took him down to my principal's office because I didn't know what to do. I mean, at this point, I'm like, the community that people have seen these, and plus she developed them on the school account, and so I mean, and took him with the school camera. I mean, just everything.
Violation, ding, violation, ding, violation, ding.
So I took him down and I sat across the desk from my principal, and I didn't even know what to say. I just sat there and he's what's going on, and I just slid him across the desk. I didn't hand him to him. I just slid him across the desk, and he's looking at me, and he doesn't even know what he's prepared for, and he pulls him out and starts looking at him, and he he did kind of chuckle. He says, "Well, how'd we get these?" I said, Walgreens developed them.
My youngest is a pretty good wrestler, and through having him do this for the last decade, I can tell you that I have unfortunately experienced firsthand how comfortable wrestlers are. They'll just walk around butt naked around each other. Moms, dads, coaches, whatever it is, they'll just drop trowel and off they go. So to adorn themselves and then take pictures of it, it sounds like it's right in their wheelhouse.
Having to go back to class the next day and have 2 of those be in my English class was kind of a shocker. I mean, I was just having to make eye contact. And of course, they knew at that point that I knew that, I mean, it was just real uncomfortable for.
Were they embarrassed, or did they wear it like a badge of honor?
Oh, they just laughed. They just laughed about it. I mean, and none of them said anything to me directly, but they knew I knew. I mean, it was obvious. And I didn't, again, I mean, I just, my principal took it lightly. I felt badly for a period of time because, I mean, they get punished for that kind of stuff. And I know I shouldn't feel badly because there's a consequence, and it was a choice that everyone made in that situation.
That sounds like several choices by several people.
There were many choices made. But yeah, it was kind of funny. The girl who did it did come in and apologize and told, I mean, she admitted that was not a smart move. She said, I understand that was bad, and I shouldn't do it. We shouldn't have done it and everything. So now we laugh about it. But that day I was a little horrified. I saw things I didn't want to see, and you couldn't unsee, I mean, just couldn't.
When we moved to central Nebraska and got the house that we are living in now, we intentionally bought it because of space and room for activities to entertain kids. I want to know where my kids are, right? I want to know who they're hanging out with. So why not have everything here? We've got a foosball table, we've got an air hockey table, I've got a pool table, I've got darts. I wanted this to be the romper room, if you will, where the kids feel comfortable to come over. So we've constantly got kids here. We're feeding them. They're sleeping downstairs. There's, it's a blast. Really, really, really great kids. But you get to see a different side of them. And if you ever happen to have those kids in class or anything, it's a it's a little different because they sometimes take that to mean that the comfort level can blur in the classroom, where it is that you're like, no, the comfort level blurs when you're at the house. When we're back in the classroom, this is the way it is, right? Do you share the same sentiment that kids should be over at your house?
I do. They were at my house all the time, just from beginning of, elementary school. We had them all summer, and I was usually the car that drove everyone places, and I fixed lunch, and we had the popsicles and the whole nine. I mean, everybody was over there all the time. And it was funny when they got to school with me, because it was, this mix of, do we call you Cathy, do we call you Mrs. Davis? I mean, that was kind of funny when they got to school, and I never really stayed on them. I Most of my kids called me Davis. There was no Mrs. And so some of them kind of slid into that, but I didn't get on them if they called me by my first name, just because they'd known me for so long. But when they were in elementary school and kind of getting that age where, you learn new words and insults and things like that, and they, we're starting to call each other stuff. We learned the word douchebag, and so that started very heavily, a lot of heavy use of that over one particular summer.
They
And
get fixated on something and then it's
yes.
just
And it was constant, and I had it, and I had told him 2 or 3 times, we're not going to use that in the house. You guys need to knock it off. And it just kept going and kept going. And so finally, one particular afternoon, I held them all into the living room and sat them all down. And I remember my husband was fixing dinner and was kind of watching from the kitchen, and I said, I'm just going to ask, do you guys know what a douchebag is? And they were all kind of, looking sideways at each other,
he
and
is.
and
No, he is.
nobody's saying anything. And of course my husband is watching, and he's just white as a sheet because he doesn't know what's coming next. And I said, I'm just going to tell you, because I'm sick of listening to it. And we're, just as long as you're using the word, I want to make sure you know what it is. So we just had a little conversation that afternoon, and we learned some things. And my husband was just beside himself. And of course, we sent everyone home after that. And, immediately he was like, they're going to go home and tell their parents that you did that, and we're going to be in so much trouble. And I said, do you really think so? Do you really think that they're going to go home and tell mom that? I mean, how's that conversation going to go? So anyway, he said, yeah, you're probably right. We don't have anything to worry about. Well, fast forward to sophomore English. We've gone from fifth grade to now I've got them as 15, 16-year-old kids. In between classes, they're, jacking around in the hallway and pushing each other around and whatever. And one of them comes in the room, and he's followed by another kid who immediately calls him a douchebag. And this kid turns around and he looks at him and he goes, don't ever say that in front of Mrs. Davis. And I realized at that point that there was probably some PTSD from that afternoon. 5 years ago, probably that poor child's thought about nothing but that since. I don't think he has kids yet, but someday he'll understand. Hopefully he'll get it. But
That makes me think about something that you and I were kicking around earlier, that this is not the type of profession that is like instant gratification. You can have some moments. You have an aha moment. You see a kid with the light bulb on, and you go, I communicated with that kid. I reached that kid. But a lot of it is you go home at the end of the day. You are exhausted. You can't possibly fathom how it is that you're going to go see those exact same kids again tomorrow, how it is that you're going to keep it fresh, how it is you're going to address some of the things that you have. You go to bed worrying about not the 29 kids in class that you have reached and are thriving, but the one kid that you can't or haven't figured out how to reach yet. That's the one that you go to bed thinking about. It's a noble profession in that regard, especially given the fact that you have to be in it for 10 or more years before you start getting kids coming back and telling you what a difference you made in their life, right?
yeah, it is. I've been in a few different communities, and this one that I'm in right now, I have moved from high school down to middle school, and we just had our open house a few months ago. And I had a couple and their daughter hang around after our little spiel, our little talk. And as everybody was leaving, she came up and she said, I don't think you remember me, but I was in your sophomore English class, and I'm so excited that you're going to have my daughter as a counselor this year. And, you just don't get to see that in a lot of other careers. And this is cool. It's cool to have that happen.
It makes it worth it. I hope that this format, this little venture that I'm on right now to help share teacher stories, gets to somebody who's having a rough day,
Mm-hmm.
is can't fathom how they're going to get back into the classroom, and lightens their load just for a second. You know what I mean?
Right. And, I have another one who's just signed a teaching contract, to come back and teach at the school she graduated from. And it's just really neat, to get to see those things. So when you're having those really rough days, it does come back. It does come back to you.
I had one of the quietest girls I've ever had in my entire teaching career blow my doors off. I go in to buy some furniture with my wife, and this young, vibrant, beautiful, outgoing Hispanic girl comes up and starts talking to us. And we get several minutes into the conversation before she drops on me. She was in one of my English classes, and I probably wouldn't remember her because she was really, really quiet. She happened to shorten her name, and so there was a lot of different stuff, but I could not believe the transformation that went from the caterpillar to the butterfly. And to have her say that it was my encouragement and support that helped her come out of her shell.
Yeah,
This is why we do what we do, right?
it is. It is. It's a cool job. It really is.
Cathy, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad I came, and I'm glad I got to, it's been fun listening to the other stories too, and I hope more people just stick with it, get involved in it, and support us, because we need it.
Absolutely. Keep thinking. If you come up with anything else, we'll have you back on.
I probably can. I'll sit down and put them together.
Enjoy your summer.
You too. Take care.